Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is Slow Crochet. Today is January 3rd, 2025, and I've been thinking about a little bit about my words or my emphasis for 2025. Really, in crochet, it's more about honing skills, refining skills, maybe tweaking, but just doing that little bit of something else, just get a little bit more perspective to take things from good to wonderful, from cool to awesome, from basic to, yeah, that's it. That resonates. That feels good. So in order to do that, my journey of this year is to really dive in and look at how we can look at some of like the big style theories and apply that to yarn choice, apply that to pattern choice. Because I'm at this place in my crochet journey where I want to actually make things that I'm going to love. Love. I mean, I've made enough things. Even this year, we were going through some of the children's things, and there's a pair of mittens that I made for one child. We went through all kinds of rigmarole to get just the right yarn, just the right fit. And that child has outgrown those mittens. And so the time has come for things to go. They were wonderful for a time, but they're not wonderful now. And so that's the lens that I want to look at when I'm looking at what I already have crocheted and what I would like to crochet in this year. So one of the lenses that is really popular when talking about style or what looks good on us is color. And a big theory is color seasons. And so in order to prepare for that, I went ahead and picked up Color Me Beautiful, which is by Carole Jackson. From what I understand, this came out, I think, in 1980, although it references some work from 1973, something like that. That was what it was telling me in the publishing information. But this is a book that I'm going to be referencing, and I haven't even cracked into this yet. Before I do, I wanted to take a look at what I have in my wardrobe currently. So what I decided to do, and I have some little notes right here, I pulled out all of my absolute favorite pieces of clothing, not crochet, but just my favorite pieces. Because I don't know if you're the same way, but I find myself almost not wanting to wear my favorite pieces because they're so precious to me. I don't know why. I tend to wear more practical, or like today, husband's cast aside sweater in a dingy gray. Why am I wearing this instead of one of my favorite pieces? I mean, part of it is comfort, part of it is my lifestyle. But in order to really start with a baseline and think about where I want to be, I pulled out all of my favorites. And so I laid them out and I thought about, okay, what's my favorite long sleeve shirt? What's my favorite jeans? What is my favorite top? What is my favorite dress, both for winter and for summer? Favorite t-shirt, favorite camisole, all kinds of things like that. And so I laid them all out, and here's a picture right here. Now there are a few things missing. Some things were in the dirty clothes and I just didn't want to dig for them, but those styles and those colors are represented here. So as you're going through, you see there's some bright colors and there's some very muted pale colors, but they all kind of seem to be in a similar family. So I have like the pinks and the reds and the blues, and I have a little bit of brown and green, and then like a creamy white. No straight up powerful bright white, and no real black either. Those are not some of my favorite things to wear. Those colors aren't included there. So that in itself is my first kind of clue into what am I drawn to? What do I feel most comfortable in? Because even though there is a great book out there and you can hire people to do a color analysis on you and kind of help you find your best colors, there's a part of me that's like, hey, this kind of like pseudoscience, right? Not to negate the work that other people do, but in the same realm that personality assessments or Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, all these different systems, there's some research behind it, but there's also this wide variety and this idea that humans are actually pretty complex and no one is going to fit so neatly into these categories. And furthermore, we kind of know ourselves pretty well, right? Like if I put on a dress, and this happened to me really recently, I was picking out a dress and I had a friend there with me and she said, "Oh my gosh, get it." Well, the first time I wore it, I got so many compliments on it. and realizing like, oh, this has to do with the shape, this has to do with the color. We kind of know what feels good on us and what we feel good in, what looks good on us. Like to some degree, there's some intuition in that. And so that can go kind of beyond what a book might tell you or what a color analysis might do. And furthermore, there's also this element of, what if I'm really drawn to something that is not in my color season? Like, what if my analysis is wrong? Or what if I see things differently than this professional? All that to say, not to negate anyone in their career choice, but I think with all of the lenses that we look through when we're thinking about like color seasons or even style, it is extremely subjective. And ultimately, the main question is, what do I feel good in? What makes my heart come alive when I put it on? What makes me feel confident? What makes me feel like my truest self? And that might have to do with the color. It might have to do with the form. It might have to do with the practicality, how it feels, the textures, how it works in our life, that kind of thing. So all that to say, things that you don't see in my favorite clothes, you don't see purple, orange, yellow. You don't see neon. You do see a little bit of yellow, but you see it in the context of some other colors. You don't see like a deep, dark black color or an indigo color. But these are my favorites, right? So moving from here, I did kind of notice that I could cluster my favorite clothes into kind of two categories. We had the paler blues and pinks, and then we had the more rich, dark, saturated, the royal blue, the hibiscus print, and kind of more tropical colors, as well as a deep, earthy, rich, vibrant green and a rich kind of earthy brown. So seeing those kind of two sides of the same coin even is really helping me start to think about, where am I starting from in crochet? So those are just my clothes, but what about the crochet that I already own? So I got out every single piece of crochet to just take a look. Sweater vest. I have a cream colored sweater vest. I have a gray, like medium gray, the color of this shirt. In fact, I made it with some leftover yarn that I had used for a sweater for my husband in this color. So it does actually suit him a little bit more than it does me, but this sweater vest would not fit him. Then I have my Malabrigo Larkspur stitch sweater vest, which is just such a joy when I look at it. I have some cardigans. I have a hexagon cardigan that's pretty bright. I have a cotton brown cardigan, and then I have like a seafoam green, like spa green cardigan. Then in the sweaters, in more of the pullover style, there's that same kind of oatmeal cream color. I have one that is kind of pink and orange and more muted tones, and a very bluish gray, pale blue, cloudy sky blue color. And then finally I have my striped pullover that is different muted colors. The ones that to me stand out pretty strongly are the kind of slate gray, cornflower blue, the kind of yellowy undertoned straw color, and the kind of plum undertone in the purple. So just in thinking about the sweater vests, the sweaters, and the cardigans, it's interesting for me to note how many kind of neutrals there are and how many kind of mottled colors there are. There's not a lot of really powerful colors there. Everything is kind of muted, or it has kind of a gray undertone to it. And nothing is really screaming. Well, my hexagon cardigan is kind of screaming, but that's one that I don't wear that often just because of the shape of it. It's kind of weird. That's a whole other story. So although I've really enjoyed wearing these things, especially in the wintertime, there are places where there seems to already be slightly a disconnect between what I've crocheted and what I love to wear. To me, hats and shawls and scarves, those are a great time to take an outfit to another level, or at least to add in a bit of crochet where normally you might not need it. So all of my hats laid out there. I have a full gamut of some very bright colors, some, again, those pastel colors, and then some very earthy tones. And then furthermore, even having some grays and whites in there as well. In terms of my scarves and cowls, there are the pale colors that kind of tend towards either pastels or some of the richer and brighter kind of autumnal greens. And then last but not least, my shawls. Sometimes, to be honest, my shawls have been dictated by the yarn that I found available. Some of it was yarn that I found at a good price and I wanted to work with it. So oddly enough, as much as I love shawls, I haven't always been true to pick out colors that I just love. I've been letting the quantity of yarn dictate what I choose. Now, to be honest, one of my absolute favorite shawls was a beautiful, rich green, and I did recently gift that my Bruinen shawl. So that actually was given to a friend. So that's not representative there, but hey, there's an opportunity to make more. In the shawls that I have at present, they are, for the most part, kind of muted tones. And then there is some really bright yellow. That is not a color that I wrap myself in general. Maybe it's a little punctuation mark, but it's never the full paragraph, right? So when I'm looking at my shawls, I see purple, which beautiful. It's that wonderful combination of like the pale blue and the pale pink. But I don't see that my shawls really mesh very well with some of my favorite clothes. Now, that's not to say that I don't work them in. I mean, I have a beautiful black shawl that I wear on fancy occasions. You didn't see a favorite black dress in there, but it does mean that as I'm thinking about where I want to go in crochet, I do want to make more connection between what I love to wear and then what I will wear in crochet. Honorable mention, I have to say, two favorites that one has gotten a lot of wear, the other is a newer make. I do have a little camisole top and a very pale kind of blush pink. It has a slightly warmer than cooler tone to it. And then my ugly Christmas sweater. The fact that I stayed in reds and pinks and kind of creams for the most part, I didn't add in a lot of green into that. For whatever reason, I just love that sweater. And I love how it looks on me. And I never really expected that. So the fact that that sweater would tie into like maybe my bright red hat, or it makes me think of the bright colors in the Hawaiian shirt with giant bright red hibiscus flowers. I think maybe there's something there that I want to provoke. Like, not that I'm ever going to be a huge red person, but like maybe I've been sleeping on red. So all that to say, we need to get into this book, which means I'm going to pause the video right now. I'm going to read this thing and then I'm going to come back to you and tell you what I'm thinking. Hey folks, so I have read Color Me Beautiful. Well, at least I've read the parts of it that I was most interested in. In this book, it goes over ways that you can figure out your color season, either spring, summer, fall, or winter, or autumn, rather than fall. And then it does go into things like body type, and it goes into makeup, things like that, which do not pertain to me, at least at this stage. I really wanted to focus on the color part of this. And so one of the points that I really wanted to make that I loved when I saw it in this book is that we intuitively know our best colors. The example she gave was from a client who came in and her 4-year-old daughter would always go for black, always wanted black dresses, black clothes, and the mother was distraught. But the color analyst said, no, your daughter is a winter. Black is a great color for her. So in that sense, it kind of reaffirmed what I was talking about a little bit about how we kind of know our best colors in general. Another thing that really resonated with me, just even in what I'm wearing today, my alpaca blend sweater, it talked about someone who came in wearing a pale blue, and it looked pretty good on her, not shockingly vibrant, but pretty good. And it talked about how certain color seasons tend to gravitate towards certain colors, even if it's not their best look, but it reflects their personality. And so how that kind of plays a role in it as well. When going through this book, I looked at all of the different color seasons and I was thinking about the things that I naturally gravitate towards. And I know that I kind of have a lot of warm colors in my skin tone. That's a big part of it. You can see here, even with the hat, there's more of a pink to my skin tone. There's like the yellowy undertone, I guess. I don't know. It's not an exact science in my opinion. But nevertheless, just based on what I could read and hear, I thought I'm probably a spring. So in the book, there are different color palettes, and I decided to take the palettes with me when I went to the hardware store, and I spent a little bit of time with this palette here, the spring palette, picking out a whole stack of color cards, of paint swatches, trying to get the, as close as I could, best matches to what was in this palette. And so from there, I was thinking, okay, what of these match the colors of my favorite clothes? And it really was kind of amazing to me to think about how, like, even some of the neutral colors are ones that I gravitate towards, or kind of the brighter colors are things that I enjoy wearing as well. And then I even, just as a contrast, I looked at some of the autumn colors, the colors of green, because I guess in the autumn color palette, there's tons of greens, which I really tend to love, and it's not really emphasized here. And so I think that this book does kind of get you going in the right direction, but I think there's probably a bit more nuance to color seasons. In fact, as I've looked at other influencers or other style systems, there seems to be a bit more nuance than just those 4 color systems. But as of now, I think I'm on a good track to take kind of some of these colors from like the spring palette, and I can compare them to even some of the crochet pieces I have. So for example, the top that I'm wearing right here, it kind of isn't that blue, any of these blues. It's not quite bright enough, but it is more of a winter one. So the question is, if I'm drawn to some of these lighter colors, these more winter colors, but I'm more of a spring, is there an exact match for me? Anyhow, there's more work to be done. But I do think my next step is going to be to take at least this palette, which you're really just seeing a lot of the reds here, but there's a ton of other colors in it. But to take these and compare these to my favorite clothes that I already have, and also my crocheted pieces, and maybe even compare it to some of my yarns. So I'm going to drop in some photos of those right here, right now. I want to see where I'm at with the hopes that I'll get some momentum of where I'm going. Three yarns that I've set aside that I want to make into a project. I have this one in this kind of coral color. I have more of an aqua color, and then I have this kind of brownish purple color, and they're all tweeds. And what I want to do is work them together somehow. Now, one of the points that is made in Color Me Beautiful is that you can have colors in an outfit that are not in your season. You just don't want those to be the dominant colors. So in this case, for spring, I have the coral color here, and I have the aqua color here. So I think in putting these together, even though this purple isn't really in what would be my color season, I think it might be more of like an autumn color, I still could put them together, and these 2 brighter colors would kind of carry the weight of whatever it is I'm making and still make it look harmonious with my color season. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm going through the yarn that I don't really think I'm going to keep. And part of this was a suggestion from Shannon over at Shannon Talks Yarn. Hi, Shannon. But an extra layer of that is looking at the yarn that I'm not planning on keeping, or like maybe I won't. I haven't gotten rid of it yet, clearly. But I can compare the colors in my yarns here to some of the colors in my color season and see if I think that it's worth keeping or not. So for example, here's one that I have in a cotton. It does have kind of the creamy off-white. It has kind of a darker gray, but everything is just a little bit muted. The orange is just a little bit muted. The yellow is just a little bit muted. And so rather than the brighter colors that this could be, I think this is going to be a no for me. Even though I'm really glad that I have, 4 balls of these, I can make something significant with them. But at the end of the day, I don't think I would wear it or enjoy it as much if I'm kind of following along with the color season theory. But I don't think it's going to work with me as well as I want it to. And I would hate to make another project and not end up wearing it because it's just slightly not the best colors for me. Another thing with that is going to be kind of the muted browns and greens. And even this kind of grayish color of brown gray. Really, really beautiful, but I think it's too kind of washed out, kind of gray and muted for me. But I am thinking, I have this in my hand, and this is Shocking Colors. When I look at it though, compared to what's in this color season book, I see, oh my goodness, that's pretty clear match for that blue. There's your medium gray in there. And then here is some of that bright, bright pink. Now, maybe the pink is a bit too bright, and maybe the purple is a bit too bright as well, or a bit too light. Maybe this actually would be more of like a winter person's colors. I don't really know, but I am going to stop and think about this, because maybe this is something that I hang on to after all. Yeah, if I flip over to winter, the colors in winter are a lot closer to the colors in this hank. And so, yeah, there's an even truer representation of that blue and that gray. And even you have the purple in here that's a lot truer to what we have in this hank. So I think, even though it's not an exact science, and I will say this book, publication and printing has come a long way. And so I'm not sure that these colors are really super accurate according to printing. It's really hard in some ways for me to see some of these differences here in some of the similar tones. And it played out as well when I was at the hardware store. Sometimes it was really hard to tell the difference in one color to a next. I couldn't get an exact match. But I think that's okay. I think we're moving in a direction, and that's the whole point of this, that we're not going for perfection, but we're just going a little bit closer, just doing some little tweaks and minor things in order to hit closer to the mark. So that's where I'm at with Color Me Beautiful. Let me know what you think. If you have any kind of style systems or color systems that you really like, I am going to be looking at some others over the course of this year, I suppose. I don't know what the time frame is on this, but I do understand that there are some color season systems where there are, 12 different color seasons. There's differentiation within each broad season. So that might be something I look at next. But then there's other style systems that I want to look at as well. So thank you so much for being with me on my yarny journey. I'm really excited to be able to work with some other colors and to be a little bit more intentional and deliberate as I move forward, that these pieces are going to be pieces that are worth the time it takes to make them, and that will really have longevity, and I'll really enjoy them in my wardrobe. So to everyone who is subscribed, to everyone who hangs out with me in the comments, to everyone who likes this video or shares it or anything like that, thank you so very much. I'm so glad that I'm here and I get to connect with you. I'm really glad to share this process with you. If you have any questions, any thoughts, please do let me know in the comments, because I am a beginner, maybe a novice. I'm a human, right? And so we're all trying to understand things in different ways. So I'll do what I can to point you in whatever direction I can if you're curious about the topics that I'm covering here. Again, just a basic overview that I'm doing, not really a deep dive, and all just for personal use. So with that being said, if for whatever reason I'm not your cup of tea, thank you so much for listening this long. I really do appreciate you, and I do hope I'll see you again